Real revenge stories at hisrevenge_stories. Hey, friend, tap subscribe. 1 second for you, huge for me. Tell me your city in the comments, then let's get back to the story. I parked the borrowed box truck under the I-70 overpass and watched steam slide out of the storm grates like the street was breathing. The windshield was cracked. Cold crept in anyway. I kept my hands on the wheel because letting go felt like admitting what I'd lost. A year earlier I had a mortgage, a backyard grill I'd paid off in cash, and Saturday receipts for ribeyes that used to mean, we're fine. I was the store manager at Foothill Market in southeast Denver. 9 years. Then my ex, Tessa, decided to play chess with my life. She whispered to the district manager, Owen Pike, about performance issues. Warnings appeared out of nowhere. HR smiled while they shut off my login and walked me out on a Thursday. A week later, mediation handed Tessa the house. Owen's arm was around her on Facebook before the ink dried. I slept in the back of a closed mattress showroom until the landlord figured it out. The kids, Carter, 13, Maya, 11, Finn, 8, stayed with Tessa at first. That lasted until her conference, in Aspen. Sunday came and went. No text. Monday morning I picked them up from her sister's apartment. 1 duffel. 3 scared faces. Maya leaned close in the cab of the truck and whispered, "Dad, what do we do now?" I didn't have an answer yet. I promised one anyway. We built a routine fast. Showers at the rec center. School drop-offs while I ran on fumes and crashed on a cot at a friend's warehouse. Third shift at the freight terminal by 10 p.m. Side jobs on my off days, drywall patches, outlet swaps, screen doors that wouldn't latch, just to keep gas in the tank and asthma meds on schedule. The terminal sat 100 yards off the river, all steel and rust and orange hazard lights blinking over crates I'd never afford. I walked lanes with bitter coffee, logging damage and breaking up rookie arguments about who crushed what. Keep your mouth shut. Keep the floor moving. That was the rule. Ms. Ortiz, who ran the neighborhood center next door, found me between dock bays one night with a clipboard in one hand and that calm voice that never sounded like pity. She gave us structure without calling it charity. The kids ate hot meals after school and did homework at real tables. Carter organized the gear closet like a locker room. Maya read to the younger kids and color-coded our spending in a lined notebook she rescued from a clearance bin. Finn shelved paperbacks and swore the library smelled like cinnamon. For 5 minutes at breakfast, with a scratched pen of eggs and a single orange split 3 ways, bills and court dates didn't exist. I held on to those 5 minutes like cash. I found a loft over an old engine shop. 2 rooms if you were generous. Ray, the owner, took cash in an envelope and didn't ask for my credit because he already knew the type of man who ended up renting there. I leveled the kids' bunk with a torpedo level so they wouldn't roll, fixed the toilet chain with a spare shoelace from Finn's sneakers, and taped a busted kitchen drawer with duct tape. The heater coughed like it had unfinished business with us, but the door locked. That made it home. Tessa showed up once. Owen's SUV idled at the curb like a getaway car. She leaned on the doorframe, bored and polished, and said, "Are you coping?" She called me Jack, like we were coworkers instead of parents to the same 3 kids. Then she slid a manila envelope halfway out of her bag. "There's help available if you want a more formal agreement." I didn't look at it. I closed the door. I shook for a full minute after the latch caught. Then I went back to the calendar on the wall and put a smiley sticker on Sunday because you fake hope however you can. One quiet night I brought Carter to the terminal for a future workforce tour. He acted bored until a guy blew a wrap job and a pallet leaned like a bad Jenga move. Carter stepped in and rewound the plastic with perfect tension. The lead grunted. "Kids got hands?" It mattered. The next week I caught a miskin that would have sent medical kits halfway to Salt Lake. I fixed it, logged it, and saved the thank you email in a phone folder labeled proof. We were still broke. The heater still wheezed. But something had shifted. We weren't falling apart. Not yet. Then she walked in, slate coat, hair pinned back, voice clipped and lawyer calm. I'm looking for Jack Mercer, she told the guard, flashing a card. If you have somewhere private, please. We squeezed into the tiny conference room between the break fridge and a sun-faded safety poster. The door only shut if you kicked it. I kicked it. I'm Camille Hartwell, she said, sliding her card across. Attorney for the estate of Ruth Mercer. Ruth, my grandmother. The one who carried quarters in her sweater for laundry and meters. The one who said, "Don't waste the good tape." Camille set a thick leather folder on the table. It smelled like ink and something expensive enough to make my throat tight. Your grandmother established a guardianship clause to a family trust her father built. She preserved it for 31 years. It matured last week. My laugh came out wrong. This is a scam. She didn't blink. Statements. Audits. A court order with my full name at the top. You can verify all of this with the clerk, she said. The trust's current value is $58.7 million pre-tax. Beneficiaries are the Mercer great-grandchildren only. Not spouses. Not extended family. You, as guardian, manage on their behalf under court oversight. I stared at the bottom line until the numbers blurred. Then she added the catch. For 90 days, you may not request or receive any disbursement. All living costs must come from earned income. It is, in effect, a character test. Ruth designed it herself. She wanted proof that love outlasts pressure. We're already in that test, I said. Yes, Camille replied. And you're passing. I signed to accept notice and the freeze. My name looked like it belonged to somebody wealthier and better rested. Document everything, she said on her way out. Receipts, hours, school involvement. They will ask. She paused at the door. And Mr. Mercer, say less. Do more. I left the dock keys on the hook, lied to my supervisor that I was sick, and drove to Mary's pantry for fresh cinnamon rolls in a brown bag that steamed the truck cab. The loft still smelled like burnt radiator and last night's eggs. The kids were cocooned in blankets. Emergency family meeting. Couch rules. Cinnamon rolls if no one complains. That bought me 60 seconds to keep my voice steady. Saturday. Your great-grandma Ruth left something, I said. A trust. Big enough to change everything. But there's a rule, 90 days without spending a cent from it. We do this on income. We passed the test. How big? Maya asked, pen already in her fingers. Big enough for college. Medical. A house. Finn blinked. Does this mean we can get a dog? It means you're safe, I said. And it means people will test that. We started writing rules, school routine stays, no talking to reporters, facts only, no bragging, no panic. Carter added, We don't tell Mom unless a lawyer's in the room. I didn't argue. Finn dug into the back cover of a library book and pulled out a folded scrap like treasure. This fell out last night, he said. 6 shaky lines and Ruth's hand stared back at me. The first line hit like a hammer. Money without love is a kind of poverty. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I held the paper like it was hot. Then I taped it above the bunks with the good tape. We were going to pass the test. We just had to stay steady long enough to finish what Ruth started. That weekend in Denver felt like a test from above. Tessa said she had a team-building retreat in Aspen. Her suitcase zipper smelled like perfume. Sunday came and went. Monday morning, still nothing. I drove to her sister's place before school. The kids were on the porch, shivering over a single duffel. No explanation. No apology. Just 3 quiet faces waiting for me to solve it. We adjusted fast. Showers at the rec center. School drop-offs while I ran on fumes, then 40 minutes on a cot in Ray's warehouse before the night shift. 10 p.m. Back under the orange yard lights. Forklifts, alarms, the reek of wet cardboard and diesel. I stretched gas money with side jobs, patching drywall, swapping light fixtures, pulling dead outlets from kitchens nicer than ours. The terminal sat 100 yards off the river. Hazard strobes blinked over pallets of dog food and medical kits bound for places I'd never see. I kept my mouth shut and my boots moving. That was the rule. Noemi Ortiz from the community center found me one night between dock lanes, clipboard in one hand, steady voice, zero pity. She offered structure, hot meals, homework tables, safety. The difference showed in a day. Boone came home waving a library card. Marin labeled a cheap binder. Budget plan. Callan pretended to joke about their program, then stayed to tutor younger boys on Friday. For the first time in weeks, their faces had color again. The loft over the engine shop shook whenever a semi rolled past. Smelled like radiator fluid and rust the first few nights. 2 rooms if you were generous. Ray let me pay weekly, no paperwork. I fixed the toilet chain with Boone's spare shoelace, taped the split kitchen drawer, and leveled the bunk so they wouldn't roll. Not exactly safe, but ours. And the door locked. That counted. Nights stayed cold. Sometimes I idled the truck to grab 20 minutes of warm sleep when the heater coughed itself useless. I didn't tell them that part. I counted $34 from faucet swaps and a woman who tipped me in singles for a screen door latch. Bought burritos and a gallon of milk. Swore this was temporary, even if I didn't quite believe it. Work never paused. Manifest checks, missing labels, drivers arguing about blame. The silence between beeps felt like a kind of peace. I took it when I could get it. Boone drifted to my desk one night, half asleep, a library book jammed in his coat. "Smells like cinnamon," he mumbled, then curled up in my hoodie on the ruined chair. He was out before I finished the shift log. I wrote a sticky note about his overdue fees so I wouldn't forget. We weren't winning. But we weren't breaking either. By the 4th day, the rhythm held. Drop-offs, shifts, pickups, the same meals in rotation. When the radiator hissed, we laughed. When bills hit, we stacked them and kept moving. The world didn't owe us comfort. We'd build our own. River fog sat low when I clocked out that Friday. My hands were raw, boots soaked. But the kids were still with me. That was the only scoreboard I cared about. Monday, a stranger stepped into the terminal asking for me by name. Neat suit, slate folder, calm eyes. I recognized the name from letters, Camille Hartwell. Attorney. The air shifted like she carried news heavy enough to tilt a life. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "do you have a moment in private?" We used the tiny conference room with the flickering bulb and the dented door that only shut if you kicked it. I kicked it. She set the folder down. "This concerns your grandmother, Ruth Mercer." The story didn't stop there. It was about to turn. The sun came through the cracked blinds like it had somewhere better to be. The loft smelled like burnt radiator and cinnamon. I stood by the counter, waiting for the cheap coffee to finish dripping, trying to believe the words from last night were real. 58 million. 90 days. A trust meant to test character, not buy peace. The kids woke one by one. Carter first, always alert. Maya next, hair a mess, her notebook already in hand. Finn dragged his blanket to the couch and climbed under it like he planned to stay there forever. "Emergency family meeting," I said. "No arguing, no whining." That line worked better when I held a brown paper bag. I opened it, 3 cinnamon rolls still warm. "Breakfast incentive. 1 per person if you listen." Maya smiled. Carter raised an eyebrow. Finn sat up fast. I kept my tone steady. "Your great-grandma Ruth left something behind," I said. "A trust. Big enough to change everything. But there's a rule. For 90 days, we don't touch a cent of it. We live on what we earn. That's how we prove we deserve it." Maya blinked. "How big is big?" "Big enough for college. For doctors. For a house where the heat works every time." Finn frowned. "So, we can get a dog?" "It means we're safe," I said quietly. "And it means people will test that." We wrote new house rules on a notepad, same school routine, no talking to strangers about money, no bragging, no panic. Carter added one more at the bottom: "Don't tell Mom unless a lawyer's in the room." Nobody argued. I left the pad on the counter and turned to the small stack of unpaid bills. Same envelopes, same fonts, different weight now. Still, I wrote "Earn IT" in the corner and went back to making lunches. Later that afternoon, I found Maya sitting on the floor with one of Ruth's old library books. She had pulled a folded paper from between the pages, creased, yellowed, with 6 lines written in shaky blue ink. "Found this," she said. "It fell out." I read the first sentence twice. "Money without love is another kind of poverty." It sounded like her. It also sounded like a warning. I held the paper like it could burn, then smoothed it flat on the wall above the bunks and taped it with the good tape, the one Ruth always saved for important things. That night the loft went quiet early. I lay on the floor beside the space heater and watched the red light blink. Every few minutes it hissed, like it was thinking. The city outside kept moving, trucks, wind, sirens, but inside it was just us, breathing in sync. We didn't talk about the number again. We didn't need to. The test had already started. And this time, we were going to pass it. 3 days passed before Tessa called. The number flashed on my screen while I was fixing a loose outlet in an old apartment building. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Jack, the kids said you had some visitor from a law office?" I didn't reply right away. The screwdriver slipped in my hand and hit the floor. "Yeah," I said finally. "Nothing you need to worry about." "That's strange," she continued, tone light like she was playing a part. "Because my sister mentioned a woman in a suit visiting your job. What's going on?" "Routine paperwork." "Paperwork that takes an attorney?" She laughed softly, the kind that always came before trouble. "Jack, you forget, we used to share finances. I can tell when you're hiding something." I almost said you gave up that right but kept quiet. The hallway light flickered overhead. She sighed. "Look, I'm not trying to start a fight. But if this affects the kids, I deserve to know." "It doesn't," I said. "They're fine." That night she showed up anyway. Same gray SUV, same perfume. She parked across the street from the shop and waited until I came out with the trash bags. "Funny," she said, arms crossed. "The kids have new shoes. You suddenly have time off work. And there's a new name popping up in mail from the county clerk's office." I looked at her over the rim of the dumpster. "You've been checking my mail?" "Someone has to," she said. "You're not exactly organized." Inside, the heater was fighting for its life. The kids sat at the table, pretending not to listen. Tessa walked in like she still owned the place, scanning the walls, the beds, the taped note above them. "What's that?" she asked. "Something Ruth left," I said. She stepped closer, reading the line out loud. "Money without love is another kind of poverty." Then she smirked. Sounds like something she'd write after cutting people out of her will. I didn't answer. "Jack," she started again, softer now. "If there's something involving Ruth's estate, it's in everyone's best interest to be transparent. You don't want to end up mismanaging something." I watched her choose that word, mismanaging. It wasn't concern. It was strategy. "The court will contact whoever they need," I said. "You always think you can handle things alone," she snapped. "That's why you're here, in this dump." The kids froze. I didn't raise my voice. "That's enough, Tessa." For a moment, her mask slipped. "You think you can just play the martyr and keep me out? You'll regret that." She turned for the door, but paused to look at the paper one more time. "You're not the only one Ruth tested." Then she left. The air felt heavier after she was gone. I waited for the sound of her car to fade before locking the door. Carter whispered, "Dad, is she gonna take it?" I sat down, rubbing my hands together to hide the shake. No. Not this time. Outside, the wind picked up, tossing a few flyers down the alley. On one of them, a headline caught the light from our window: "Local heir and legal dispute over family trust." The story was out. And she had just found her weapon. By late morning the noise found us. A blog ran a headline that hit harder than a layoff: Riverfront Dad's kids may inherit millions. By lunch, 2 news vans boxed the alley like a crime scene. Lenses hunted for our faces. I eased the box truck past a woman filming my mirror and killed the ignition with both hands shaking. The phone blew up with strangers, old coworkers, and one, congratulations, from the same chain that walked me out. I put the phone on silent and buried it in the glove box. The story wasn't just out. It was circling. They came by 7:20 that evening. Child Protective Services. Inspector Shayla Kern. State boots, neat jacket, calm voice. Scheduled welfare check, she said. I let her in. She tested the hot water. Opened the fridge. Scanned backpacks lined like soldiers. Boone offered a leftover cinnamon roll. She thanked him by name. Then she asked for documents, and I laid out everything: our 90-day expense log, school reports, center attendance notes, my signed freeze acknowledgement. She flipped the folder shut with a quiet snap. You did your homework, Mr. Mercer. I nodded. I'm not failing this test. She didn't smile. Let's hope no one else tries to make you. An hour later, Camille called. Her voice was steady, not surprised. Tessa's uncle had filed as an interested party. A cousin, too. They want court time, she said. But they don't have what you have: documentation, consistency, records. I looked at the door, then the kids, then the copies on the table. Keep me posted, I said. 2 nights after that, Tessa arrived in lipstick and a blazer she hadn't worn since mediation. Owen idled at the curb, engine running. She pitched public-facing strategy and co-parenting alignment. I didn't answer. Carter stepped out from the hallway, taller than last summer, voice level. We're good here. We closed the door and turned the lock. The heater coughed once and held. Work didn't care about my headlines. My supervisor tapped the clock and said, "Don't make it my problem." Message received. Keep the floor moving. Keep the pallets tight. I kept my head down. Camille's rules set the rest. Say less. Do more. Stack your evidence. I did exactly that. Logged hours. Checked expenses. Printed screenshots of every transaction. At dinner I told the kids, "This is noise. We don't let noise steer the ship." Carter nodded and passed the rice. Maya stuck an energy use chart on the fridge. Boone added a sticker to Ruth's note above his bunk. Outside wanted scandal and a story. We gave them neither. Courtroom 4C felt like a fishbowl. Back row packed with reporters pretending not to be reporters. My jacket still smelled like freight dust and machine oil. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. Stomach tumbling like a dryer. I walked unsteady anyway. Tessa sat across the aisle in a blazer that didn't quite fit. Her lawyer looked rented by the hour. Her uncle straightened a tired maroon tie. Then Judge Miriam Holbrook came in like she was allergic to nonsense. One look and the room sat up. The gavel hit once. Let's begin. Black water. Cold air. We were in it. The uncle's lawyer went first. Nice tone. Slick words. He talked about proper stewardship and fiduciary duty, like my kids were startups that needed a board. He repeated opportunities until it sounded like a sales pitch. Then Tessa's attorney stood and began floating balloons: joint guardianship, third-party financial oversight, a neutral advisory panel, all drifting toward Owen Pike's name like it was already on the door. I exhaled once through my nose. The judge lifted an eyebrow. Inspector Shayla Kern kept it clean. No show. Just facts. Employment continuous. Attendance solid. Health records current. Housing stable. After-school center daily. All money tracked. All within the 90-day no-spend rule. She handed the file to the bailiff and sat down without looking at anyone. My court-appointed tried. He did. But he was outgunned until Camille Hartwell rose from the gallery, calm as ice, and took the witness chair with a stack of folders thick enough to make the judge blink. executor for Ruth Mercer's estate and counsel to the trustees, she said, then opened the playbook. Trust terms, audits, 90-day freeze, my signed day one acknowledgement, the full ledger of earned income and expenses, categorized and clean. The judge didn't study the paper. She watched me while Camille read grocery lines. I didn't look away. The kids took the stand. Maya first, notebook in both hands. We chose not to spend for 90 days, she said. It was the rule. I made a spreadsheet. We tracked every dollar from Dad's job. We didn't touch the trust. The judge asked one question. Why? Maya didn't blink. Because Grandma Ruth said money isn't the point. Trust is. Boone went next. Little coat button wrong. He held up Ruth's library note in a plastic sleeve like it was sacred. She wrote it for us, he said. It says love builds houses. Money can't. The room stilled. Callan last. Hands at his sides. Voice steady. We didn't choose money, he said. We chose Dad. Something in me cracked, but I kept it together. Tessa tried to cry after that, the trembling voice, the hands, TV tears. The judge waited and asked flat. Where were you the weekend the children first came into Mr. Mercer's care? At a work conference, she said. Do you have documentation? I didn't keep the hotel receipt, but I was reachable. I stood and handed timestamp texts, 3 days of messages asking about the kids, left unread. We were told to step into the hall. I didn't get far. Owen Pike met me by the vending machines and leaned in with that corporate grin. Big boy money now, huh? Let's see how long you can keep up the act. I said nothing. Not from fear. Because one wrong word could cost the case. Back on the record, I didn't give a speech. I told the truth. I work nights. I feed my kids. I fix what breaks. I kept the rule because Ruth asked. The trust is for them, not me. Not 1 cent spent. I hold a clipboard because I used to manage a store. I know what theft looks like. I track names and dates because I've been burned. Camille stood again. One final exhibit, she said, a sealed memo from original trust counsel, 31 years old. The judge read it twice. Set it down. Then spoke. The law requires clarity. So here it is. She listed the findings, sole legal and physical custody to me. The children's trust to be managed by independent fiduciary trustees, no family controllers, no outside opportunists. Structured visitation for their mother, monitored as needed. No financial oversight to non-custodial parties. Then her eyes came back to me. Mr. Mercer, keep doing what you're doing. The gavel hit once. Sharp. Final. Time snapped back into rhythm. The hallway slammed us like winter river wind. Reporters reaching, shouting about mansions and yachts and liquidity. Boone clamped my hand. Maya kept her head down, counting steps. Callan walked tight behind me like a shadow. We pushed through the glass together. Boone tugged my sleeve, quiet. So, does this mean we can get a dog now? I kept walking. We'll talk. For 2 weeks after the ruling, the phones finally stopped. Reporters moved on to fresher scandals, and the alley behind the loft went quiet again. The kids slept through the night without jerking awake to headlights. I started counting normal things again, lunches packed, receipts filed, light bills paid on time. Peace felt strange, like silence after machinery shuts down. Camille met us at the courthouse one last time. She carried a plain envelope and a set of keys. The trustees approved initial access, she said. A property transfer, nothing extravagant. Ruth chose it years ago. It wasn't a mansion. Just a 1-story brick house near Sloan Lake, fence half painted, trees too tall for the yard. The front door stuck a little, but the heater worked, and the floors didn't shake when trucks passed. I stood in the doorway longer than I meant to. Maya measured the kitchen for shelves. Boone found a loose board on the porch and fixed it with the same shoelace we once used on the toilet chain. Callan sat on the step, head tilted. Feels weird, he said. Like it's waiting for us. It is, I said. We moved in with 5 boxes and 1 note taped to the wall, Ruth's handwriting still steady despite the folds. Money without love is another kind of poverty. I framed it between glass panes from the thrift store and hung it where the morning light hits first. Work kept me humble. Same dock, same noise, same burnt coffee. But when my shift ended, I drove home instead of back to the warehouse cot. The kids were usually on the porch with homework, arguing about whose turn it was to cook. No security guards, no questions, no pity. Just life restarting. Tessa tried one more call. No threats this time, just quiet envy under small talk. They'll forget what you did for them, she said. I let her talk until she ran out of breath, then answered the only way left. That's the point. Months passed. The trustees handled the numbers. I handled everything else. Carter joined a mechanics club. Maya wrote essays about community budgets. Finn saved for a rescue dog. We never spoke about millions again. On the 91st morning, Camille came by with coffee and a final paper. The freeze is over, she said. You did exactly what Ruth asked? She looked around the house, at the patched porch and the taped-up school schedules. She'd be proud. I watched her leave, then went to the yard. The wind was steady, the lake smelled sharp, the kind that wakes you up. I took the note from the wall, read it once more, and slid it back under the glass. Ruth left money. But what she really gave was the time it took to earn it right. Subscribe if you want more stories about real men who don't scream. They act coldly to the end.